Hi, my name is Matt Levine, and this is my informative speech one. For my audience today, I have my wife Melissa, my son Hayden, my mom Ann, and my sister in law Amy. And there's my daughter Rebecca. Imagine that you are huddled in a house as gunshots and rocks are breaking glass all around you. Outside, there are ropes waiting for you to be hung. Dorothy Schweider, in her book Iowa the Middle Land, stated Prohibition would prove to be the most emotional, politically significant, and tenacious of all issues in 19th and 20th century Iowa. First, I'm going to give you a little background on the temperance movement and German pride in their beer. Then I will describe the events that occurred, and finally the aftermath. To understand the events, here's some background information for who was in favor of the temperance movement and German customs, and who was against the movement. The temperance movement was people who wanted to restrict the sale and manufacture of alcohol, and it received extreme resistance from immigrant populations. Dram shops, or bars as we know them now, were outlawed in 1851 in Iowa. A prohibition law was passed in 1855, and there was an amendment to the state constitution that passed in 1882, banning the sale and manufacture of all alcohol. Many groups formed to support these laws. Generally, they were Protestant, Republican, older, female, and rural. Germany loves and is proud of their beer. On August 23rd, 1516, the Bavarian co-rulers, Duke Wilhelm IV and Duke Ludwig X, passed the German Beer Purity Law. It set standards for German beer that still exist today. Groups opposed to the temperance movement were German and Irish Catholic immigrants, Democrats, younger, male, and urban people. Now that you've been given some background information, here's how the events of one of the darkest times in Iowa history occurred. Much of the accounts in this story were written about in an article for the Little Village magazine by Marlon R. Ingalls. He is a professional archaeologist, historian, and architectural historian within Iowa's Office of the State Archaeologist. The law went into effect on July 4th, 1884. Shortly thereafter, three men named Conrad Graff, John Englert, who was a city councilman, and John Dostal, who employed hundreds of people in the beer-making business in and around Iowa City. After the law went into effect, Conrad Graff decided to tap a keg at his brew house and give away the beer that he had on hand. A mob formed. Some city council members came and closed up shop. The mob was irate. They threw empty kegs through the windows of the business, proceeded to go in and drink every last drop of alcohol that there was. A week later, sheriffs came and gave citations to the three men, which were promptly shredded up and thrown in their faces. A trial was then set for August 13th of 1884 at Justice John Schell's house just outside of Iowa City. On the day of the trial, the three men plus 150 brewery men rode to the house and surrounded it. When they got there, a man named A.E. Main, who was the city prosecutor, stepped out onto the porch and decided to give legal briefs. He was immediately kicked down, stripped bare, and tarred. As well as the men in the house, there were also the judge's wife and children. Finally, because his mother-in-law was dying on her deathbed upstairs in the house, the men relented and they left. They came back to town and terrorized and ruled the streets of Iowa City all night long. Two informants that were brothers, John and L.G. Swafford, escaped Schell's house, but were found in town. They were then beaten nearly to death by Graff and 30 other men, and the only thing that saved them was some concerned citizens who ripped them from the mob as they were being led off to their own hanging. The actions of that night reverberated for years to come. Arrest warrants were issued for the three Germans, but a jury decided not to indict. According to an article in the Cedar Rapids Evening Gazette, the red noses on that jury told the story. Maine, the prosecutor, was beaten so badly by Graff and a teamster in May of 1885 that a Gazette correspondent remarked his face was pounded almost to a jelly and there were large lumps under his eyes. The Swafford men sued for $20,000 against the three Germans. They eventually settled and won $7,000 in 1886, which is equivalent to almost $170,000 today. Dostal's Great American Brewery was destroyed by a suspicious fire in 1909. Englart's Old Time Brewery was razed by urban renewal, and Graff's Union Brewery still stands today in Iowa City. It was designated as a historic place of the U.S. on April 10th, 1986. The 1884 beer riots were the result of long simmering tensions between two very different factions. It's amazing how some people were ready to kill over their right to manufacture and sell alcohol. So even though they went about it in an unsavory way, give a little toast to the German beer mafia the next time you have a beer, because they fought for your right to drink it over 125 years ago. Thank you very much.